Let's do it. So, like we do every time, welcome.
Welcome to our monthly State of the Industry. A couple months ago, we decided to make sure that Katie and I introduced ourselves every single time, and you'll find out why in just a second. So I'm Leslie Hilbert. I'm the General Manager of Experience Brokerage Network, which encompasses 4 amazing Keller Williams market centers here in the state of Oregon, along with my partner, Katie.
I am Katie Hardman. I am the Chief Opportunity Officer for the Experience Brokerage Network and team leader of Keller Williams Sunset Corridor. And we have Chris on the call today, but Chris, we're going to save you for a minute. So, because you have a lot to say in a couple minutes. So the reason though that we do these announcements is because every month there's many of you who have been on this call before and know the rhythm of the state of the industry, but there's a lot of new faces. And so we want to formally welcome all of these wonderful agents to our family, to the Experience Brokerage Network. So if you see a name on this list that you know or is in your market center, make sure that you welcome them. And on behalf of the Experience Brokerage Network, welcome to our family. Now, a lot has happened between the last time that we met and this time that we met. So we wanted to first congratulate everybody who has attended or has been a part of your market centers award ceremonies, because across the state of Oregon, all 4 of our offices have celebrated the wonderful successes that you have accomplished in 2022. So on behalf of the network, we want to say congratulations. Thank you for being our partners in business, as well as be on the lookout, because this week we will be sharing via email and social media and some personal touches the winners of the Experience Brokerage Network Award. So if you were an award winner in your market center and you're a little bit competitive, be on the lookout, because we will be sharing our awards from the network as well.
I love it. Katie, that's not the only thing that we did in February. We are just back from family reunion. This was an incredible event. I would say it was probably one of the best, if not the best, family reunions I have ever been to. 12,000 Keller Williams agents coming together in Anaheim, California. And you know what? Like, usually we unpack a lot of that at our State of the Industry, but this year we're going to do it a little different. We're not going to spend a lot of time going over those takeaways or kind of regurgitating the speeches, because a lot of that has already been brought to you on a market center level or in follow-up wrap-up emails. So instead of unpacking it here, we're going to make sure we are connecting you to the resources and the recordings so you can get it right from the source. So in your chat box, if you have missed any of those things, we are going to be dropping the vision speech, as well as the vision speech slides, which of course we really recommend that you watch, you study. In addition to that, they also released the playbooks this year, which provides the step-by-step guide to tactics like open houses, online leads, mortgage hacks, social media, seminars, etc. So check those out. For those of you who have been waiting for MREA 2, wait no longer. They released the Crack the Code, which was an interview of top agents across the country and putting all of their tactics into a single source. And for those of you who are looking for a little inspiration, the Ed Milet keynote speaker was incredible, talking about the one. So if you haven't had a chance to check those out, we've got those in the chat box, and we'll also include them in the wrap-up email. And what else do we have, Katie?
As if that weren't enough. So this is everything that has already happened, and we wanted to share those resources with you. The other thing is we wanted to tell you what is coming. So be on the lookout for more information, but we wanted you to be the first to know. If you remember from our State of the Industry last month, we had Jeff Glover on, and he rapid fired some great tactics that you should be implementing in your business with us on our State of the Industry. He's actually coming to Oregon on April 12th. So mark your calendars. April 12th, he will be sharing new market, new plans, 17 ways to win this winter or any part of the year. So we will be getting out information on location. It will be in Portland Metro. Time is 9 to 12:30, but we'll get you the link to sign up for that event. We are honored to be partners with him in bringing it to Oregon, but this is our next big event here locally. So if you're looking at your calendar right now and you're like, wait, that conflicts with something, yes, we know. So the next announcement is that our April State of the Industry, and we'll get this out to you all locally as well. Our April State of the Industry is going to push a week so that we can make space for Jeff and not have conflicting schedules. Our April State of the Industry will be April 19th at 9 a.m. So just pushing a week back. So we'll get out messaging for you on that. We'll update calendar invites. But if you're looking at your calendar now, know that the 12th will be Jeff. The 19th will be State of the Industry. Sound good? Okay. So now I know that you guys are really not here to listen to Leslie and I.
Wait, Katie, we have one more announcement. I know we have to hold off, right? One more minute before the big show. Slip one more slide.
That's right.
That's right. This is too important to pass. I'm sorry. We're going to hold off just one more minute. You guys, KW is a company built by agents for agents, and we need to hear your voice. This is the 4th year in a row that we are participating in the Oregon Top Workplace. And what that means is that every year we open up to all of our agents, our leaders, our success team members to get feedback from you so we can make sure that we're continuing to provide the value and services that you are looking for in your business. Now, there has been some confusion because unfortunately this is done by a third-party site, and the email that you are looking for in your inbox says Your Experience Brokerage Network Employee Survey. As much as we've tried to change the verbiage, we are not in control of that, but it is for you. So if you are an agent, if you are a leader, or you are a success team member anywhere in any of our market centers, please fill out the survey, give us some feedback. We want to hear from you. And if you can't find it in your email, the next one will drop as a reminder at 7 p.m. this evening. So check it out, give us your feedback, and we will see if we make it to the top workplace for the 4th year in a row. And that's officially the last one, Kate.
No pressure, but we do really want your feedback. I think question 1 is, were you pressured to take this survey? And no pressure, but we do want to hear from you. Thank you, Leslie, for the reminder. I do care about this, so I apologize for almost skipping it. Now, for what you have all been waiting for, why we are really here today is because we have 2 amazing humans and 2 amazing business owners that have agreed to share how to become a master negotiator, a skill we all need right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Debbie and Chris to share with you for the rest of the hour.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Leslie. I'm thrilled to be with everyone again this month, and I'm not alone this month. I bring with me one, a business partner of mine, 2, someone that I look to as an incredible real estate coach. Has coached me and many people within my organization for, I won't say how many years, Debbie, because we don't want to give any hints.
We
but
don't want to do that, yeah.
he was in real estate, running real estate teams and selling real estate for over 16 years, and now has coached for 22. So you can begin to do the math. She's done over 100,000 private coaching calls, and that doesn't include the literally thousands of group calls you've done, like you've agreed to do today. One of the things that I believe Debbie is an absolute master at is the topic that I asked her to come and talk with us about today, and her and I are going to have a flowing conversation around becoming a master negotiator. But before I do, I also want to give credit where credit is due. We have countless members of our KW family heading down to Palm Springs in just a couple weeks. And Debbie is actually the creator and mastermind behind this conference right out of the get-go. which is called Built How. It is called Built How because in sort of closed door conversations, we decided that too often we go to conventions or go to real estate conferences and we hear about all these amazing things that are happening and things that people are doing. And we get sort of 10-minute glimpses of what they did on stage, but we don't actually learn how they did it. And so really a few years ago, we launched Built How, and Debbie launched the Built How podcast as well, which many of you listen to. But we just want to remind you that on March 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, Debbie and I and Ben Kinney and a group of incredible guests will be down in Palm Springs, putting together what we believe will be the greatest real estate conference of the year. And I don't say that just because we're doing it, but it is going to be a blend of both real estate, entrepreneurialism, and true how we built this. And on the screen, you'll see people that have built incredible businesses and incredible speakers. Brendan Burchard is going to be there, and many of you know him just through the fact that he has bought and sold all of his Oregon real estate with KW agents. The founders of Ben and Jerry will be there, and we'll be able to dive deep into how they built that. I'm not sure they'll be giving out free ice cream, but we can always hope. Will Guidara, actually one of my favorite books this year was and is Unreasonable Hospitality. And he will be talking to us about how he built the number one restaurant in the world. Jamie Kern Lima, many of you may know her, many of you may not. She is the solo entrepreneur originally and founder of It Cosmetics, originally or eventually selling that business to L'Oreal for over $1 billion. Self-made billionaire female founder. And actually, crazy enough, the first female CEO within any L'Oreal company, which begs the question, why did it take that long? But she will be there sharing a bit about her book and her journey, and then obviously lots of real estate professionals and speakers as well. So there is a link in the chat box. Please join us. We will have plenty of time to spend some time together, hang out together. We'll be doing a network event as well down there. So just let me know if you're coming. If you need help getting there, shoot me a private message as well. We'd love to have you as a guest. All right, now let's talk about negotiating, Debbie. You are, as I mentioned, a master at that. And I know we have a deck. Do you want me to share that, Debbie?
Yes, please, if you will.
I can probably do that. Maybe you can start by talking to us a little bit about what, as you hear that word negotiations and negotiator, what do you think of? What's important? What do we need to keep in mind right out of the gate?
Well, I think, first of all, if you look at many different industries, those who are incredibly masterful and powerful negotiators are those who really earn the most and really have the most power in their professions. And yet, if you look at the real estate industry over the last few years, we'll just go back a few slides here. Chris, I think we're forward a little bit too far, so we'll click back a ways. But if you look at the real estate industry for the last few years, we really haven't had to be negotiators, right? Because the market kind of did it for us. You put a listing on the market, you have 25 offers. Buyers knew they had to do whatever the seller asked. So, it was a hassle. And yeah, you had to go through lots of contracts or submit lots of offers for your buyers, but it really wasn't requiring you to be a highly skilled negotiator. It was a little bit more like being an order taker. And for some of you, you've been in the business maybe a long time, maybe your skills are a little rusty. For some of you who are new or brand new or have never been in a market where you actually had to be a negotiator, this is all new territory. But Chris, the good news is, people like you and I think, Ben Kinney, our business partner, is a phenomenal negotiator. He wasn't born that way, right? I mean, negotiation is a skill. I think it's a skill and an art to master. And I think, Chris, you're going to have to give me control maybe of the slides. Oh, there you go. So here's what I'd like to ask all of you is, on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, how would you score your ability to negotiate? And I think as we go through some of the slides today, a lot of it is about how we control our own emotions. And, you know, let's face it, there's lots of things that happen. Oh my gosh, I really need this deal. Or I'm so frustrated with these people because they're just not listening to me. Or sometimes even anger because they're rude or disrespectful. And of course, that's not always your buyer or seller. That could be the affiliates or the other agents in the deal. And so if we let our emotions run wild, we will not have control of that emotion, of that negotiation.
Debbie, one of the things that I think of when I see fear, frustration, and anger, and in any negotiation, I think it's important as real estate agents, we recognize that it could be our fear, it could be our frustration, it could be our anger, it could be the buyer's fear, the buyer's frustration, the buyer's anger, or it could be the seller's fear, frustration, and anger. Throw in a co-op agent, and now you have four people's emotions all playing into one common, what we hope to be, goal. And it's a management role for sure. And that is why talking about this and having this conversation is important in the current market.
Well, and I think before we go into even things like, well, are you giving up too easily, or some of the tactics of negotiation, I almost feel, Chris, that emotional piece of it is one of the most important pieces. Because if you might say, incite riot, you know, so if you report back to your buyer, oh my gosh, the seller is being so unreasonable on the request for repairs. This is ridiculous. I can't even believe they're such idiots. I mean, what have we just done, right? We have blown up that situation. And so, you know, you have to be that calm, cool head in the deal. You and I've read Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, the great hostage negotiator. And, you know, part of his whole, everything he talks about in the book is just, you got to be calm. But then you can't give up too easily either. You know, again, that's going back to being an order taker. But then, Chris, I don't know how you feel about this, but I was thinking about this morning, that in the past, decades ago, salespeople were taught some gimmicky techniques or some kind of overly salesy language. And maybe it worked okay on the consumers 20 or 30 years ago, but today's consumers are pretty savvy. They're not going to be talked at, pitched at, and they're not going to fall for tactics. Plus, I don't think any of us feel very good if we have to resort to that to get a deal together, right? But we have to be strong. And you think of it like the iron fist in the velvet glove: firm, warm, calm, strong, but also relentless. And when I say relentless, I'm not talking about, hey, I want to get my commission check. But I always had an affirmation that I reminded myself, my job as a great salesperson is to help them overcome their fear and hesitation to achieve their goal. So it's not about my goal, but remember, they get stuck. You know, they don't buy and sell very often, and it's stressful and it's scary, and they get stuck and they can't always move themselves forward. And that's where that firm, warm, calm, strong, and yet relentless to move them forward towards their goal.
I think at the end of the day, like as I look at, as you described this part of negotiation, at the end, I ask myself, do my clients respect me? Does the co-op respect me? Mm-hmm. Like if I'm pushed over, my clients aren't gonna respect me, and neither is the co-op. Like if I'm overly strong and just abrasive because I feel like I need to win it or earn my commission, then the co-op's not going to respect me in that role either. But at the end of the day, a great negotiation ends with all parties truly respecting each other for representing their clients well, and you feeling like you've done that for your client as well.
And, you know, we have to work to get past that reflex no. How many times, I mean, this perfect example, my husband and I, there's a wedding we're going to last Sunday, going to Nordstrom's. We don't really have time to shop, don't really want to. He's carrying the pair of pants in a bag that he needs to match to a shirt. And the salesperson comes up and says, may I help you? And what does he say? No. I'm just looking. Right. That's called the reflex no. I read the other day that the average consumer drive to work, turn on their computer, look at their phone, watch TV, they're hit with 60,000 ad messages in a week. So they learn to just say no to everything, even when they don't mean it. So you have to challenge yourself. When you hear that reflex no, sometimes you get what I like to call that kind of that creepy feeling like, ooh, I don't want to ask again, or I don't want to try to move forward because maybe they won't like me, or I'm not quite sure. I don't feel comfortable. Well, you got to challenge yourself. Go beyond your comfort zone. I always tell people, Chris, that if you're at a listing appointment and you're closing one time and they say, oh no, I got to think it over. Well, then now your next challenge is, how do I graciously close a second time? And if I'm closing 2 times, how do I close 3 times? And if you train yourself, you could literally close 6, 7, or 8 times before walking away from that. And you do it with questions and curiosity and discussion, not sign the contract, sign the contract, sign the contract. So if you're thinking, well, I'm not that pushy salesperson, good, because guess what? That doesn't work. Yeah. And even your own mother isn't going to buy a house from you if she doesn't want to. It's more about getting them past that fear and hesitation where they get stuck.
Yeah, I think on that topic, one thing to remember is everybody has so many choices right now that they're looking to disqualify, because the minute I can disqualify one, I get to move on to the next. I'll disqualify that one, move on to the next. And so as we hear no's, sometimes we internalize that it becomes an emotional no. The fact is they're always clients, right? They're always looking to disqualify so they can move on to that next option. And so we need to figure out what questions could we requalify in that conversation. And then the last thing, you talk about being pushy. I think that oftentimes we hesitate to ask the next question because we don't want to be pushy. I remember someone told me early, hey, listen, if you're not a pushy person, you're not a pushy person. So stop internalizing that you're being too pushy. Now, if you are, well, guess what? You are, and everybody knows you are. So just deal with it and move on and be pushy, which is not going to work in sales, by the way. Right. But I think too often we think because we're asking for business, or because we're asking the second question or fourth question, or as you say, 7th question, that's being pushy. No, it is just asking questions that you've earned the right to ask. So
yeah. And I think you brought this up a minute ago, but truly master negotiators know they are negotiating with everyone that's involved in that transaction. They are negotiating with everyone throughout the transaction. And for those of you who are brand new to the business, I think the best advice I could give you is be the agent that everyone wants to work with. You're responsive, you're polite, you're gracious, and sometimes they're not always gracious back, those other agents out there that you might work with, but take the high road. And, I think so many of our terrific clients, and I know, Chris, people in your brokerage, your teams, they really take this to heart, and people will actually go out of their way to work with them. That makes that piece of negotiation so much easier because you already have a connection or a relationship with the real estate professionals in your area. So you're responsive, you do your job, you're polite, you're gracious, you're graceful, and you really go the extra mile. But remember, that doesn't mean you're a wimpy doormat. That doesn't mean that you don't stand up for your client and represent your client well. I remember Brendan at the last Built How talking about how you negotiated his house purchase. And he had some pretty tough requests, and he kept saying, oh, but you're Chris Suarez. You can get it done. and Chris, I think we all know you are about the least obnoxious person I've ever met.
I don't know if that's good or bad. What I'll say, Debbie, is from a tactical perspective. For those of you in the room, I'll share one of the conversations I have every single time I sit down in front of a seller to get the listing. And I'll share with them, I said, at the end of the day, I'm going to be honest, right? Like the reason why you're interviewing other agents and the reason why you like most of them is because agents should be good human beings. They should be personable. And we all pretty much do the same thing. Like we all know how to get the job done. The difference is in this market, you need to hire a great negotiator. I have always used that line as sort of, okay, now I'm going to begin to separate myself. And I say, after that, I said, can I explain what I mean by that? Unfortunately, most agents that are going to sit across the table from you will tell you they're a good negotiator and they're going to start their negotiation when an offer comes in. But see, I actually believe there are 7, 8, 9, 10 different points where you need a great negotiator. You need a great negotiator when it comes to the first call I make to an agent, letting them know I listed your house and at what price. You need a good negotiator when someone says they're going to go and see your house and I'm talking to them about the house before they even show it. You need a good negotiator after the showing and they say their client is interested and I'm negotiating for your price at that point. Before they write the offer, I'm negotiating for you. When they give me the offer before I even present it to you, I'm negotiating for you.
Right.
When I go back and respond saying we're going to be countering, I'm negotiating for you. When I present your offer, I'm negotiating for you. When they're presenting it, so by the time we even get to closing, I've actually had to negotiate for you 6, 7, or 8 times. And if your agent doesn't understand that, setting the table and negotiating and understanding where that price is and why it's there and explaining it at each one of those points, then you've already lost the negotiation. Oh, and by the way, after we've accepted and we feel like we've won a great negotiation, guess what? Appraisal time is a negotiation and inspection time is a negotiation. When they get cold feet 3 days before closing, that's a negotiation. So I probably am going to negotiate on your behalf 11 times. So I want you to sleep on this and understand, who are you going to choose as your negotiator to come to bat for you 11, 12, 13 times by the time the deal is done. And so at that point in time, it separates you as a negotiator because you even understand that, as you mentioned, it isn't just a prospect that you're negotiating, it's everybody in that transaction.
As you were saying that too, I thought about something else that if you look at most real estate agents in their reviews or on their website, they talk about service and caring and put my customer first. All that's great. But if you go to the website of a major law firm, they talk about experience, expertise, and results, right? So as you're gathering your reviews and testimonials, and you've done an incredible job negotiating in that particular transaction, encourage the client as they write the review to talk about that. So it's one thing if they say you're nice, but to Chris's point, there's lots of nice agents out there. That's not what, separates, the skilled from just the average. It's that ability to be that master negotiator. So get them to throw that into those reviews, get them to talk a little bit about that for you.
Yeah, I just think it's important for us to have this conversation. As you mentioned at the outset, the market has begun to shift. It's an interesting market. This weekend, our team was in 4 multiple offer situations, right? And I'm sorry, 5, 3 on the buy side, 2 on the list side. And then I just finished this morning negotiating on a listing of ours that went back and forth 5 times, right? And interestingly, at the end, once the deal came together, the seller said, hey, thanks for negotiating for us at purchase or at purchase price selection. Thanks for negotiating for us when they came and saw the house. Thanks for negotiating. And they outlined that script conversation I had at the dining room table, and they remembered it. So again, now your point is take it one step further and say, hey, I'd love for you to leave a review. If you could do me a favor, just focus on negotiation in that. Those clients will do that for you if you've done a great job for them.
And before we move into this piece, which is really important, you made me think about something that I think is super important. So back in the day, when I got into real estate, the way that we negotiated offers is I would contact the listing agent, take my buyer's offer, and I would go meet with the agent and the seller. So I got to really plead my case in person, or if I had a listing, that buyer agent brought that offer to the seller and to me, and we sat around the table. I loved it. I loved it because that was like the real deal where you could really roll up your sleeves and negotiate. And we know that seldom happens now. And here's the thing to be careful. Be careful in assuming that other agent that you're handing your offer over to, or that you're handing that counter offer on your listing over to, be careful in assuming that they actually know how to negotiate, because most of them do not. So anytime you can put together a summary sheet, like if you were able to be there saying what you would say about your buyer or saying what you would say to represent your seller, give that other agent graciously, right? It's not talking down to them, but do it in a way where you can say, these are some of the key points I thought might be helpful for you to have. You know, here's some of the data I thought might be helpful for you to have, because we're assuming they're doing their job, and often they're not. They're just saying, this is what they want. And seller says no, or a buyer says no. So I think you have to remember, you're going to potentially have to help that other agent along on the other side of the deal.
Yeah. Let's talk about persuasion.
Yep. So here's the thing. This is the scary thing, guys. 50%, statistically, 50% of the deals you fail to put together are because somewhere in that negotiation, you repelled somebody. So master negotiators know that persuasion is not likely to occur if there's not trust and rapport first being established. Remember though, establishing a commonality, oh, you know, they like to golf and so do you, and having a little chat about that's not establishing trust and rapport. So it's important to remember things like cross-cultural selling. I love cross-cultural selling for dummies, this little yellow and black book. And it talks about that's not about race. That's about the environment they grew up in and how to negotiate. For example, saying, you know, let's split the difference. Well, that's an American culture negotiation. If you say that to someone that's not in the American, negotiating from American culture mindset, well, that's not going to work, right? So part of establishing trust and rapport is knowing who you're negotiating with, being prepared, adapting and speaking their language. You know, I think I even have it in the deck. We may not have time to get to it. Chris Voss says, if you think somebody is crazy or weird as you're negotiating, that's probably not true. You probably just haven't figured them out.
Yeah, in most cases. Debbie, you bring up a book. The other two books, I mean, if we're going to be students of negotiating and persuasion, right, which is negotiation, right. I think Robert Cialdini is one of the masters at that. Reading his book Influence and reading his book Persuasion.
Got him right here on the desk, actually.
They're awesome. And truly, I truly think that as people in this business, we should be working at becoming masters at our craft. And this is a big part. Like those books will help you do better for your customers and your clients. So just be aware of that. Yeah,
they're great. So many great books on the topic. I think we really already covered this, and shielding them from emotions or negativity is not lying to them about the situation. So if I went to my buyer and said, well, the seller feels that there's a lot of demand for their property, and so the request for repairs you submitted, they're simply not willing to do it, and they are asking if we're going to continue with the purchase. And, you know, I've done a little research, and I think we're looking at about $1,000 for you ultimately to do those repairs. So, you know, considering this is a great home, we probably should just go ahead and move forward. See, or I could come in and say, they're being a jerk. The agent was rude to me. The agent, you know, threatened us. See, I could easily spin all that up into where now it's not about the transaction. It's about a battle of egos. And that's really dangerous, but it's so easy to let that happen, because sometimes the other side has offended you and you want to vent that. Don't, right? Don't do it, right?
Yeah. The thing that and I was just talking about this with our team just yesterday, the thing that I feel is important here is never make either your client or their client out to be the bad guy, because at the end of the day, it becomes a win-lose. So even using language around, I've had a discussion with my seller, I've advised them that, it takes it off of them. Right? They very well may have wanted to come down lower in price and meet your buyer. But if I have advised them that given the current situation, given the current price reduction, given the current market, given the 15 showings, given that we have an open house this weekend, given that there are a couple of people that have expressed some interest, I have advised them to counter at $1,050,000, right? Or whatever that is. And it makes it completely unemotional, which also allows them, when the buyer says, forget it, I can come back and say, you know, the seller has asked me to come back to your original offer and accept that, even though I advise them not to do that. I'm representing them and they'd like to make this work. Now they can be the winner and I can take the heat from the bad advice. Like, I will always be that person on behalf of the buyer and seller. And I'll tell you, it's a great tactic to sort of move negotiations through that process without getting a buyer pitted against a seller, which is never good.
Yeah, see, I love it. Yeah, this is great. I hope they're all taking a screenshot of this, because that's just perfect. And I'm so glad you added that to the deck.
Right? The client, your client should always be the good guy, right? Or the good girl.
Right.
Like if there's going to be a bad guy somewhere, let it be me.
Mm-hmm. So the golden rule, you know, we've all heard it. Most of us have in our life, you know, do unto others the way you would have them do unto you. However, when you think about that, that's not really, you know, so appropriate when it comes to negotiation. Instead, you think the global rule is do unto others the way they would prefer you do unto them. So that's, again, walking a mile in their shoes, their generation, their culture, their style of negotiation, their personality, you know, someone that's highly analytical and you're not. Well, you're all excited, like, we need to make this deal. And they're like, show me the data. I need to understand. Well, why the data? It's a great house. You need to do it. No, but I need the data. So you're not speaking their language. So I think that's important to remember, that we need to be chameleon-like. Right? So what causes negotiations to break down? Lack of preparation, lack of rapport, too much focus on our own agenda, overly canned and salesy, argumentative, and where emotion just takes over and overpowers logic. And sometimes it's all of these, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So rapport is the foundation on which negotiations begin. Just remember, without it, you may lose 50% of the deals that you work on. Okay. So how do you build and gain rapport? And Chris, I think we have some tips and slides for them next, if I remember correctly, if you want to flip to the next one. So again, getting into that mindset that our job is to help them overcome their fear and hesitation to achieve their goals. You know, meet them where they're at. Look at them like a puzzle. We got to put all those pieces together. What are their motivations? What are their fears? What are their concerns? What is there in NLP and neuropersuasion? We call it, what is their convincer strategy? So what is the way that is most comfortable for them to go about making a decision? You can actually ask them. You could say, you know, when you've made decisions in the past, you know, purchased a property, bought a car, did something that was really a high dollar decision, what did you need in order to make that decision? Because really what they're telling you is, you know, this is how I choose. I have to consult with 10 friends, or I have to go online, or I have to have lots of data, or I don't know, I just saw it and I fell in love and I did it. Right. So it's just good to you're never going to get it perfect. And that's the key. Sometimes people think it's too complicated, but it's really not. It's just about paying attention, right? And thinking of them as that puzzle.
What I love about this, Debbie, is one, it keeps our job interesting for sure. But more than that, I think oftentimes when we're working with couples, right, or partners, they're typically not the same. Like that's why they're together. And so they respond and they act completely differently. The conversation I was talking about earlier today, the husband is, you know, he was submarine captain. The wife, you know, does TV commercials. They're like wildly different.
Wildly different.
She just wanted the deal together because she saw the family on the ring. Like, she was like, these kids need that backyard. And he's like, why are they arguing over 20,000? Like, there was potential. They were so wildly different that now you need to sort of piece them together as a puzzle,
Right.
speak to his logic, speak to her emotion, almost just acknowledge the emotion, go back to the logic, and then go back and forth. It's almost like a therapy session to put that deal together. But you only do that when you understand who are the decision makers. They're both going to have an opinion after we get off the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Let me speak to both of them so they can meet in the middle.
And by the way, on that point, people always get very confused. Well, how do I speak to them differently? Again, let's say you knew multiple languages, and let's say that Katie speaks French and Chris speaks Spanish, and I speak both. Well, then I'm going to speak in French to Katie and Spanish to Chris. So it's just like, I'm going to speak to an analytical, and I'm in a certain way, and I'm going to speak to someone that's making a decision more based on emotion in a different way. It's not that hard to go back and forth. Again, part of it is just calming the noise in your own mind and just paying attention to what's going on around you. And of course, sometimes they don't easily volunteer their true motivation. Maybe they think because they're negotiating with you, I don't have to sell. Then you wonder, well, then why are you going to all the trouble, right, of staging your home and listing your home and showing your home? Well, what are they really saying? Well, you're not going to press me into selling too cheap. I'm going to negotiate and get you to believe I don't have to sell. So you just have to skillfully extract the truth by asking great questions, super observant, great listener. You know, that super old show. My dad used to watch it when I was a kid, Columbo, where he's that detective and he always has to ask, you know, like one more question. So that's the key, right? Well, another thought would be on the Charlie Brown cartoons when the parents speak or the teachers and the kids hear wah, wah, wah. So when they say things to you, just hear like, okay, it's noise, it's noise, it's noise. What's the reality underneath what they're saying? Don't always take that at face value, right? Because I do think they hide that motivation.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add here is extract things by asking great questions, and then have great stories. And what I mean by that is in that moment, and you said it a minute ago, when people say, well, I don't have to sell. I guarantee you, friends, like, we're going to hear that a lot in the next 3 to 6 months. You know this is a good offer. You know this deal should get done. And the seller feels, I don't need to sell, because the motivations are not lined up right now. And so what I have found to be a great negotiation tactic, at least for the conversations to continue between two worldly, and oftentimes, you know, the partners don't feel the same way at that moment. I don't have to sell. The other one's like, dude, I want to sell. Like, I would love to sell. Right. And so to be able to get them towards the middle, I often say, you know, I've seen this very situation before. Can I tell you a story? And then I insert story of seller chasing that market down, seller not loving that first offer, but ultimately ending up 30,000 below their first offer 4 months later. Like, and believe me, I have plenty of those stories. So remember, we have to be great storytellers. Good salespeople are good question askers and storytellers. So weaving in those stories will help them realize that, okay, it's not just me. Other people have been there. Some people just don't want to, right? When you get that seller that doesn't want to lose, or get that buyer that doesn't want to give, if they hear other people have lost, right, in their mind, right? Other people have given in their mind, oh, okay. The ego is able to drop a little bit because they're not the only one. So bring them down the path with some stories.
Well, and that all the classic closes, you know, reduce it to the ridiculous, alternative choice close, third-party examples. That's one of the best, because people either want to learn from things that people did well and succeeded, or they want to avoid the mistakes that others have made. So yeah, that's a really good one, Chris, to throw in there. You know, and I think sometimes knowing what are their non-negotiables and deal breakers. I've always heard, well, an objection is a question in the mind of a prospect. That's true. It could be a question in their mind. It could be a limiting belief. It could be them just kind of messing with you a little bit to see if they can put you on the hot seat and what you'll say and do. But also sometimes you just hit that wall where there's just some non-negotiables there, these immovable conditions or circumstances. And when you don't recognize that and you continue to push hard beyond that, I think that's when all rapport breaks down and even maybe opportunities of reapproaching that deal in a different way.
Yeah. Debbie, we could talk for hours about just scripts or conversations to move the ball forward. I'll share just one more on this very topic, and then we can move forward. It's one I used yesterday. It's one you brought up, Brendan, when he was selling his condo. It's one I used with him. I use it. It's like my go-to. And this is the question I ask when the seller gets to a place, right? And Brendan did. No, I'm not selling at that price. I said, okay, I understand that you're feeling that way right now. Could I ask you a question? Would you buy this condo or would you buy this house again at that price?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've already detached from it. So chances are they would not. I mean, honestly, you want $1.1 million, they're at $1.05 million. Would you buy this house at $1.05 million? Well, like probably not. Okay, then why wouldn't you allow someone who is willing to buy it at $1.05 million to buy it at $1.05 million from you? Like ultimately, walking away from $1.05 million is you repurchasing your own house at $1.05 million. If you're prepared to do that, I'm prepared to support you. However, like I know what you told me, like what is important for you, what your concerns were about owning this house a year from today. Like that question, would you buy it back? Why won't you let someone else buy it from you at that price? Is a great move the ball down the court question. And even if they, we all get that client and they're just obstinate, they will sit with that question and you may get a call back in about an hour and a half. Well, we've talked about it. And so I just love that strategy and that line of questions.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. You made me think of it when I used so much for years would be looking at that homeowner. So let's say for an example that they are an original homeowner. And let's just pick a number. They 35 years ago paid $250,000 for the property or whatever they paid, and now it's worth $1.05 million. So you say to them, I know this offer isn't what you were hoping for, and yet I just want to congratulate you guys because when you bought this property for $250,000, if someone had told you then it would be worth over $1 million one day, would you have even believed them? Yeah, you wouldn't, right? I mean, because that's crazy, but what a great investment you've made. Now, what I would like to share with you is, let me show you what the bank is going to require that a purchaser of your property today will need to earn and will need to have as a down payment, and what their monthly payment will be. And that's when I would say, would you pay whatever it would be, $16,000 a month to purchase this home? Well, no. Are you kidding? Well, and how many friends or family members do you have that could actually afford to do that? So you see, that's why our market is somewhat limited. We have to find people willing to spend it, but we also have to find those few people who like it, can spend it, qualify for it, and pay that monthly payment. So I think just making them think about the fact that, oh yeah, I paid $250,000, it's over $1 million. No way would I pay $16,000 a month to live here. But that worked really well for me with original homeowners.
Yeah. And what happened right in that moment, I sat back as you started and imagined myself as a seller that kind of feels like they're losing because they got the wrong offer. And immediately you made me feel like a winner, right? Immediately like, well, congratulations, you made a good decision. Like I felt like I was winning. I felt like I was smart. And it just sort of eliminates that bad emotion of this is not what I want, so I must not be winning. So it's a great sort of flip of even just those emotions for sure.
Well, I think we always have to let them save face, right? In every negotiation, you want to give them an opportunity, even if you have a haggler you're dealing with and you've got to shut them down rather firmly. and yet let them save face in some way, recognize what a strong negotiator they are, compliment them on that, right? So the more prepared you are, the calmer you'll be. Anticipate the objections, anticipate the questions, anticipate knowing the clients and the other parties, how they might respond. And I think it's always good to go in with more data and more information than you think you're going to need, and then use it wisely, right? We don't have to dump everything on the table, but the more prepared you are, and if you get there and it's super easy and you didn't need any of that, good for you. But when you feel prepared and focused, you're going to be much calmer at that negotiating table.
If we're doing our job as a negotiator, and remember, you got hired because you were a good negotiator, then before I present any offer, I'm going to have conversations with, again, every other listing that's on the market around them, figuring out what kind of traffic they've had, because we have an offer in hand. If something's pending, getting some sort of idea, did they have to negotiate or not? Like, you can tell me that, right, Mona? Like, did you negotiate off price or did you not? That's all I need to know. If they did, like, I'm setting the table and I'm going in, as you say, hey, prepare, do your homework. Or just get the offer emailed to you, call them in the car because you've read it. Like, that is what has happened over the last 2.5 years. Now we just need to do our homework before presentation.
And we talked about quiet the noise in your own head. Again, the warm up, when you're going into a negotiation, whether it's on the phone, via Zoom, face to face, there's a lot of money at stake, not just for you, but obviously for all parties involved. So I think it's really good to get your head in the game, turn off your phone, grab all the paperwork, go through it, think about the scenario, think about the conversations you need to have. What I often see happen is people are maybe going into a negotiation, and right before they get on a phone or a Zoom or a meeting to do that, they're dealing with some crisis in their business or their life, and now they're not focused. So you just, like, it's kind of like the locker room, right? The pre-game warm-up. And I don't know if I even have it on the slides, but there definitely is that home court advantage. In sales, that's proven to give you a 40% advantage in a negotiation. So, hey, there's nothing wrong with asking your clients to come to the office, to sit with you, to review an offer. It gets them out of the emotion of their home. And, it gives you that bit of an advantage, that professional edge. So scripts are great. Now, you don't want to sound overly gimmicky or salesy. However, when you have good scripts and you have a well-organized presentation and process, now I can just focus on the magic, which is the art of rapport, communication, and being right there in the moment in that negotiation.
Yeah, I do think it's important for us to go into those conversations with a plan. And so, right, I've shared with this group quite a bit that people pay us for our opinions, right? That is why they go to, by the way, most professionals, that's what they get paid for. We get a doctor's opinion. We want a second one, go for it, right? You should. Same thing with us. So at that point in time, they've already signed a listing agreement with you or a buyer agreement with you. That means they value your opinion. So give it in that moment. Oftentimes we're like, well, this is your house, so it's your decision, but here's the information. Like, no, I think it's important for us to say, here is what I would do. Now, ultimately, I want to hear from you, but here is the path that I would take given the offer that we've received. Like, your opinion is worth something. And when left without one, that's where things go sideways. We didn't do our job. Like, you're asking them for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 at the end of this negotiation. Then do the work. Like, give your opinion, be willing to put your name on it.
Well, and remember, they do need to be led in many cases. I read it might have been in Robert Cialdini's book, 98% of the world prefers to follow, only 2% prefers to lead. So when you have that relationship, when you know it's the right thing for them to do, for you to say, this is my professional recommendation, and in order to achieve the goal you have, this is what we need to do next. This is the next step. Here is the action we should take. Because, if you go to a doctor and that doctor says, well, I don't know, what do you think you should do? you know, here's all the options. What do you want to do? No, guys, you got to tell them. So Chris, I know we're not going to have, I don't think, time to go deep into this, but we can flip very quickly through the steps to report, mirror and match, the rate of speech, ask great questions, smile, right? Smile, because that calms that situation down, and make the clarifying question your friend. You know, don't assume you understand what they're saying or asking. Go 2, 3, 4, 5 questions deep. I've heard it called scuba dive instead of water ski. So, wow, Chris, I just realized in this topic, there are so many cool things we could talk about, great stories, closing techniques. It could be a whole day event. So I think we might have to do a little more of this at Built How, which was, I appreciate you guys letting us practice on you here today.
Is that what that was? That Debbie, as much as anything, one, we have 2 minutes left, so I wanted to open up if anyone has any specific questions, but feel free to put that in the chat. Yeah, we'll get you a pared down version of some of these scripts and conversations and tactics that we've shared. But my hope and my goal is that our brokerage is building true professionals and consultants. I think some of our biggest frustration shows up when we're out there working really, really hard, and we're doing both sides of the deal, or we're coming to the table representing our clients and the other agent isn't. The fact is we can never count on what's going to happen on the other side. It's
Right.
Our goal here at our brokerage network that we are never that agent on the other side. Fair? Like, we are always the one that comes prepared, that understands that a big part of our job here is negotiating. And I thought, what a valuable conversation to have right now in March of 2023, because if we haven't spent time on it, if we haven't studied it, if we haven't decided that this is a skill that I want to improve, then it's got to get on our growth plan. So
Right.
yeah, we'll do a bit more of this at Built How. And in the meantime, we'll come back to the brokerage side of things and do it for our group here as well. But I think what a great mastermind to just sort of curate a list of those sort of tactics, scripts, and practical ways.
I love it. Great idea. Well, thank
Negotiation.
you all. I have another Zoom in a moment here, so I have to leave you, but I so appreciate being invited. And I hope to see you all at Built How. We're going to have lots of fun. And remember, part of the value is amazing referral connections with fabulous agents, all brokerages, all brands from all across the country. So we hope to see you there. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for
Bye,
joining us.
guys. Thanks a
Have a great
bunch.
day.
Thanks all.